Jugs. Say what is in your
All right, hello there, people of the internet. My name is Jagero, and this is Dialogues Jagero. Today we are talking AI, and AI has been such polarizing new technology. And I won't even say that it's new technology, but a lot of people think that AI is new technology. Before, we had Grammarly that was widely used by organizations across the world, and they were typically using AI. Even when we were using Microsoft for grammar check, we were using AI. Today I'm in the studio with Dr. Omondi Ochuka, professor at the University of Okay, anyway, we have got Omondi Ochuka. He's a student of AI, and he's done a lot with AI. And I have Agi Olo. Jack is my sister, by the way. Don't think it is.
You've started so strong.
Yeah. We have Aguilo, somebody that is very fearful and very concerned about AI and what it's going to do to the next generation of
it's okay. I'm just going to
of workers and things like that. So, for me, people of the internet, I think AI is the next best thing after sliced bread. If you asked me, it has done so much. Like I consider myself having 3 assistants right now, like Maria the 4th. So number 1, I have Claude AI that I'm using for several things. I have Google AI Studio. I have ChatGPT Plus that I use for different things. So I want to start this conversation, Ochuka, by asking Agi why she's so afraid and concerned about AI. Can you tilt your nini so that when you're talking this right in front like that? Okay, very good. What is your biggest problem or concern with AI? Is it the devil reincarnate?
No. I told you. So this Jagero's description of my relationship and understanding of AI is based off of a discussion we had a few weeks ago.
Okay.
In which I said that when you're supporting something that seems to be taking everything by the waves, there's a spectrum of support.
Yeah.
So there's the deep believers, and Jagero falls in that category of people. There's the skeptics who just have no clue, who just don't want anything to do with them. And so this is where Jagero has placed me. But I fall somewhere here in the middle. Where I believe that AI is very useful and it's going to be used in so many ways. I use AI in my day-to-day life for different things that I feel like are redundant, and I was just like, just take it away. What I was trying to articulate then, and the context in which I was having this discussion, and I'm glad you're a professor, was...
Not yet, clarification.
You're going to become a professor.
So, yes.
You're going to be, but you're a lecturer. You teach students.
Yes, I do.
The context of that discussion was that in the classroom we were saying that when students are using AI, actually, let me just go back completely to where that conversation began. Our friend here, Mr. Jagero, is creating an album or collection of music using AI, of songs using AI, right? And I wagered that there's things that you cannot separate from the artist. Like, it's fine if you want to create your album using AI, totally fine. But let us not make it so that, this is the only art that is going to exist. We still need, and the example I gave was Nyashinsky, which I was really battered for because apparently Nyashinsky is not a good artist. But the example I said was Nyashinsky. It's like, you still need Nyashinsky to go into the studio, into his writing room, into his whatever, and dream up his next song, dream up his next album. You need that deep work that produces art that is beautiful and that resonates with a lot of people. And when we say that, then now we want Nyashinsky to consistently use AI to tell the stories that he wants to tell, that is what I am fighting against. Because there's things to me that feel like are very, they're very close to your humanness and your humanity, and I'm talking talking here directly about art and artists and the relationship that you have with the work that you produce as a result of the life that you're living. If you're a musician, if you are an artist who, creates fine art, if whatever kind of artist that you are, a lot of artists tell us over and over again, it is born out of the experiences that they've had. It's born out of, their great art is born out of a human being, right? Am I saying that AI cannot support that process? No, I don't think so. But I do not think as well that we should just outsource all of it to AI. That's where I stand. Yes.
Ochuka, what do you think? I want you to respond to something that she's saying, that because I think it's an irrelevant issue when she talks about letting Nyashinsky make his own music and let us allow Prince Inda to make his own music and not interfere with that. And I don't know where she's coming with the idea that somebody's interfering with whatever they are doing. Because, like I said last week to someone that for me, sometimes I do not even like AI music that much, because I feel like I cannot attach the person that is singing to somebody that I know, that perhaps when I'm listening to a love song or a sad love song, somebody that for at some point in their life had a broken relationship, and now you connect with that kind of thing. But I also think that people are sort of bundling these things together, in the sense that for people who are making music, they're making music for other ideas. Like, for example, one month ago, I went to Migingo and make a fantastic documentary about the lives that people are living down there. On Envato Element, we used about 8 songs on that documentary. When we finally uploaded it, and you have to understand that we pay for Envato, but the way Envato works is that when you use their music, the first thing they do is to strike it on YouTube, give you a strike. Until you give them the license, then they withdraw that. And sometimes they can go for a long period without even attending to the fact that you have been given a copyright. And when that is happening, you are not earning from that video. Once you have a copyright, monetization is taken away. All right? So now, in the next documentary that we did, we decided that we are going to go to Suno and make the kind of music that we want. And it was so easy. It was so, we did not have any strike. Things were just smooth, and we were earning from the good that we had done. Okay? Right now, if I want to ask Nyashinsky for his song to use on my YouTube video, I don't even have his number. I don't even know how to contact him. So I think that some people are sort of not differentiating the kind of AI music that we're making and the kind of songs that they're enjoying. When you're listening to a song on a documentary, you really don't take a lot of notice. You are not there to enjoy the song, but the song is accompanying what you are doing. So what I want to ask you, Omondi Ochuka, you're doing a lot with AI. Do you support the use of AI as it is, or do you have any sort of what is the word? Any sort of concerns like she does?
Actually, I do. When we talk about AI, and I think this is part of the reason we are having this conversation. We are threading the bundles, because one of the sources of that paranoia towards AI is we bundle things together, and then now we want to argue from that going forward. So if you are able to thread these things separately and then identify where do we approach our argument. So I think as an artist, personally, then again directly to you, I actually don't agree with making music on AI. You can actually do it in complementary value, because for me as an artist, I'm a producer of music. I write my own music. I have made my own beat, but these beats have also been made on software. A beat making software is actually AI. It's actually AI. But they are liveness, which is something I think you brought forward. Art is a liveness, and the liveness cannot be it cannot be taken away from the artist. And I think that is one of the things, one of the fronts where we should not allow AI to take from humanity itself. And then number two, I think that often when we talk about documentaries, you see documentaries also are very varied in nature. So sometimes you might only use an instrumental. An instrumental you can use an AI particularly. But if you want a certain aspect of lyricism or a certain ideology of where that music was coming from, whether it was born out of experience, maybe you're doing a gender-based violence or you're doing a political documentary and you're looking at a certain thematic song, I feel like you need to attach an aliveness, a lived experience into that music, into that art. So when you relegate everything to AI, you're actually doing a disservice to that which you are creating. But then again, tied up, I think for a long time, most skeptics that are a bit paranoid about AI are missing one thing. AI has footed its ground. And just like when tech was coming in, let's say, 1960s and 70s, when they made the first IBM computers and all that, they still needed a woman, actually, to calculate the projection to the moon. You remember that?
Yes.
There's a documentary about
Yes.
it. And at some point, when the IBM computer could not verify for them to the dot, they had to recall this woman back from where they had already sent her, because they thought the supercomputer could replace her. So I feel like, yes, tech, including AI, is here, but we need to understand how do we complement it with our lives, because we are human beings. And no matter how much we imagine it, even if it will happen in 250 years to come, the transient nature of tech, it is not here yet. It is only possible based on what we do now on going forward. For example, you talked about Grammarly. Right now, there's in academia, there's something called Turnitin. So Turnitin is where you feed, let's say a student submits their paper, a thesis or a paper, and then I submit it to Turnitin. So Turnitin goes to repository, like an archive of internet, thousands, millions and billions of knowledge. It checks whether, number one, there's usually a percentage allowed when you're writing a paper. Mostly it's between 7 and 15, depending on whatever you're working with. So it checks against that repository and understands, have you met the criteria? Have you surpassed the kind of plagiarism? Because at the end of the day, there's nothing new under the sun. That's what they say. But you need to also bring in yourself. And this, if I can tie this up, I wrote 2 days ago on Facebook when I noticed that some particular comments I was seeing, and this is I felt like it was really lazy. Like comments on a post that is very simple, that needs you to just give yourself to it. It doesn't need any expertise. It just needs you to give yourself to it. Somebody picks it and pastes it on ChatGPT. You can actually see it, because if you have used AI for a while, the language is very easy to pick.
Yeah.
So I feel like that is what actually ties us back to art, because life and love and aliveness is, you cannot separate it from the human being. And I think we need to be very brave, because then again, tech and waves and trends do come with a lot of force. So if you're not brave enough, you cannot chart your own way forward. And then finally, 4, AI complements who you already are. You understand? There's a Jagero. When you, for example, when you use, when I've read your 3 books, deep in and out, I think like right now I'm confident enough to know that I know how you use your language. So when you use AI from a Jagero's perspective, you will see Jagero flowing through that ink. It's very hard to understand somebody who has just picked it up and then put it on a ChatGPT. And this is something that I have a lot of issues with students, because I went to the extreme end of doing a PDF with an invisible ink on it. And this invisible part had prompts that they'd never thought and never saw coming. So most of them fed it into ChatGPT and vomited it back to me. And this is something I really don't like, no matter how neat. And I think this is also the other thing. Sometimes the refinery of thought processes or creating art or creating conversations like this, it's sometimes messy, it's sometimes not neat. Before you get to the final product where people can see, people don't see when we were setting up the stage. People don't see when we were wondering, how do we put up the frame? How do we attack this conversation? But those are the things that actually make life. And those are things that AI cannot do. And I think this is why sometimes when people say we do not need to outsource living, aliveness. I like that word because it's something that I don't think AI can replace. We don't need to outsource aliveness to tech or AI or anything sort of like that.
But I want to ask him a question before you jump in, Agi, because he talks about not liking people making music out of AI.
Exclusively.
But
exclusively.
Okay, ask the question.
Yes.
But I'm just wondering because then we have to go back and ask ourselves this question:
Yes.
Why are people making music on with AI? There is a reason. And before you jump in, I want him to answer that question. Why do people? Because for me, I have a specific reason why I use AI to generate music, and it is for production.
That's very true because it's a conversation we've had before in terms of the business model of copywriting.
Yeah.
And it's very expensive and very exclusionary when you look at Asia or Latin or even Africa. Let's just focus on Africa. So, for example, if you were to get credits for, let's say, you said Nyashinsky, you love Nyashinsky, you want to do a documentary or you want to do just a normal video and then attach it online or do it on your YouTube channel. So sometimes get the process, and this is the thing, AI comes with a model, a Western-centric model, in terms of how they do their copywriting law, how they patent things, how they collaborate, you understand? So those models are not here in Africa, they're not in Kenya. If you want to get a copywriting from Amazon or from Rock Nation in America, that's pretty easy.
Yeah.
Yeah? It's pretty easy because even right now, if you Google random Rihanna song, you'll find the credits. You understand? You'll find a way to reach the publisher. And the process is very prompt. So right now, yes, Akina Nyashinsky or Wakadinari, they have their publishers, yes. But before you reach them, and against the timeline that you have with your project, it's already too late. And then we also have to look in terms of the costing. In America, when you're doing a good job on your YouTube channel and you're putting in the work, most likely you'll get the rewards. But right now, in Kenya, before you get your rewards and then also start paying your assistants that you were saying, it's very hard for you to reap back from your sweat and labor. And therefore, that creates a niche where people are thinking, I would need 100,000 for 3 songs on a documentary that is only 1 hour.
Yeah.
I can't afford that because even your all production unit does not cost that much.
Yeah.
Understand? And you would probably need about $50 to create 10 songs exclusively yours, because when you create on Sono, it's yours actually, yeah? So I think that creates a niche, and this is also why we are saying, what is also the nature? Because then again, I don't want to hear an Oriental, because most music, the music, have you realized the music you use are very Oriental, they are very Japanese, because it comes from EDM. AI music is very heavily influenced by EDM because that's
what
how
is EDM?
EDM is electro
dance.
and electro dance music, and it's very heavily influenced by tech, like the guitar riffs, the deep sentimental piano. It's very far removed. For example, if you were to use Nyatiti, they can still sample Nyatiti. I'm talking as a producer.
Up to the other day, they couldn't sample the piano music.
Exactly. So if you were to use, so imagine you are doing a documentary in the village and you use that kind of a music. Don't you see that there is a bit of a disparity there? There's a bit of a dishonesty as well. And so I think honesty also comes in very important in terms of creating with AI. And I think this is why many, like for example, Meta as a platform has now included the badge, or YouTube has included the badge, where if you're creating a content and it's AI, you have to include the badge that this is AI. But you see, you passing your work, and this is also what I tried doing with my students, where I grouped them in terms of groups. And then I was doing sort of like a social control, where a group will exclusively use AI, a group will use mixed breed, and then a group will use just normal, go to the library, do your research, and then it is handwritten. So, and then we went into discussing in terms of the breeds of these 3 groups and see which one actually is better. And you realize it's very hard to determine which one is better, but you can actually tell that somebody who fronts as if this work is theirs may at some point run into the problem of not defending it, because there's an ownership. That's what I was telling you, when you write like Jagero, I know this is a Jagero handwriting. When people see Ochuka's writing, this sounds like the philosopher Ochuka, because you cannot separate it from me, and because even if I use an AI, it simply adds color and soups it up, but it does not remove me from the art. Yes.
So I was thinking about something I hope you've not lost your trail of thought.
I have so many things to say, and I think this is like the best person to have this conversation with, because when you were not here, these people really shouted at me. They were really angry.
Okay.
But I think I wanted to start by talking about solving the problems that capitalism costs. Because when you talk about cost, that's a capitalistic problem. When you talk about trying to solve for your particular case, like I need the music for this documentary to make sense, but I can't afford it. That's a capitalistic problem. And I think because we have, and with tech, I think we've done this all through. We try to solve capitalistic problems just by bandikaing the next technology to it. It's just like, okay, sawa, let's keep, because how hard is it for MCSK, for example, to create a process in which we are able to affordably pay musicians to create for us this music? How hard is that? Na tuseme, it's let's say 100, 200 shillings. But if everyone who's creating is paying, then the musician gets money, right? You're able to create an ecosystem where artists are able to be paid. I think it's laziness, genuinely. I think we are just a lazy community because we do not want to solve the problem. We just want to bandika the next seeming solution to it. And we are creating more harm than good, right? So that's my first thing. It's a capitalistic problem. So how do you solve for capitalism? Not by ongezaing more capitalism into it, you know? So for me, it's just like, let MCSK, let whichever authority create for us a place where a repository. And every time I download this artist's music, I pay 300 shillings. I pay 500 shillings. The artist gets their pay, I get the music. But I get music that is contextually relevant, that is honest, in that way. And to be fair, I'm not saying that music created by AI is bad necessarily. I am fighting for the artistic process. And tied to the artistic
process.
For the artistic
process or for the artist?
For the artist
and the artistic. You cannot separate the artist and the
artistic process. But also, secondly, the second point.
So, okay, before you go to the second point, I'm just wondering, what do you mean you are fighting for the artistic process and for the artist?
So it will become apparent because the next thing I want to say is tied to it.
Okay.
Thinking and human thought and philosophizing, all of that thing is a very crucial part of human existence, which we want to now get rid of altogether, from our education systems all the way to how we conduct our businesses and all of that. Thinking is what helps us create better societies. There is no society in which there is no philosophy or ideology that then exists and exists well. That is the problem with AI. That is why students are, ukimwambia, okay, I need you to, you have prompted. I was told you need to write your prompts creatively. Yeah. You have prompted your AI creatively, right? It has brought you a collection of thoughts and ideas. Read what is there, formulate a thought. Nobody is formulating any thoughts, and nobody is thinking. And when we stop thinking, we are outsourcing our lives to technology. There's no such thing. It's how we say, we were having this discussion with Jagero the other day about gentle parenting. So our technology has come and it has told you, Miss Sophie can teach your child how to enunciate their words or how to speak well or whatever. But now you just take the child and inundate them with Miss Rachel day and night. What has been lost there? It's your critical thinking to say that, by the way, this child spending 28 hours out of 24 hours of the day in front of this screen trying to learn how to enunciate is not good for the child. Even though somebody said that, this is the process that you need to follow if you want your child to know how to speak by the time they're going to school. It's thought. We need to bring thought back into our shared lives. Just let people think critically about the issues that you're trying to solve. Sometimes you don't even need that technology to solve the problem you're trying to solve.
I think that there is a fundamental flaw with education, and that is why I think a lot of people at the university or at any given institution is not interested. Because my thinking is, Ochuka, is that if you like agriculture, or you like let's say literature, like this lady is now doing her masters in literature and what? Masters of I didn't go to school, so
You don't know MA. You don't know MA.
Yeah, I don't know MA. Doesn't know it.
So I want us to go to the workplace. I wanted to start with the workplace, but I think it is important that we start with education first before we go to the workplace. Because then my thinking is, Ochuka, if this lady has decided that I love art, okay, I love art and I want to study literature, and it is coming from deep inside her that I want to know how to write. My thinking is that this person, when they are given a problem to solve, such as, let's say, homework, then if they truly love that subject, then they are going to do it without, opting for AI, right? And there are so many other areas of education whereby if you really love what you want to become, then you are not going to be very fast in going into AI and giving it to them. Because when I do something completely 100% on AI and then present it to you, Ochuka, I think what it is saying is that I am not interested in whatever I am here to read. I, for example, has been told by my parents that I need to go and do masters in literature, or I've been told that I have to go and do, let's say, e-commerce or whatever they call them these days.
So that they can get a job.
Yeah, and get a job. So the end goal is that people are not interested in whatever they are studying, and that is why they are going ahead and doing these things. So perhaps the first question that I want to ask you is that you are with students most of the time. Do you think that students today are interested in education as they should?
Well, education has really changed over the years.
Yeah.
But I think before I pick to that, I want to do a rejoinder to you in terms of capitalism and the death of thought, the death of actually being. Because thought and being are very closely linked. So I think capitalism has created this illusion that you simply need to keep your head down. Once you get something to be productive over, and roll the stone every now and then, repeat, rinse, and then now tech comes and tells us you have to optimize your life. Yeah. So if I could, for example, have 10 people in the office, so now I can have 3 because AI has taken sort of other jobs. So I feel like that depth of thought and being has created a hole from which we do not want to walk out of, because it requires a certain bravery. It requires the bravery that you're saying. And I feel like when I'm tying it back to education, I think education is how a person, a human being, finds themselves, because we exist in a community, no matter how much or what people tell us that we are individuals. Yes, we are, but we exist in a nest. And this nest sort of, it's very differentiated, but it's also very communal. And every person, no matter how significant we might think they are in this ecosystem, plays an important role. And I think this is also why thought and being comes into the process. So when we send kids, I remember like when the first time I didn't like school in the first nursery years. It was very difficult because I'm autistic. I was born on the spectrum.
Yeah.
And I didn't speak for a long time. So I struggled. I was stuttering. My speech was slow. I couldn't connect with people. So tying it to how and why we send children to school and ignoring or just basically relegating that duty to school and institutions and teachers, we are trusting that this other environment is going to bring them a new resource that the one at home might not be able to achieve. And because the resources there are very different from the ones at home. If you want to do a homeschooling to your children, you have to create an environment for that to happen. And I feel like that disconnect comes from our perpetual, everyday instruction that you need to go to school to work. You need to educate yourself to work.
Yeah.
I feel like you need to educate yourself to find your place in the meaning of life. Therefore, if I am doing an MA like the beautiful lady there doing an MA in literature, they have born it from themselves. And so that I so much love literature. I so much love how people have articulated their thought and being into art, into writing, into creative processes. And I want to be able to go and dive into it and excavate something that can be truly mine, that I can also continuously provide into the world and offer sort of like an immortality to these other artists that I also revere. So yes, students don't want to be educated. They want to finish school. In fact, when you have a conversation with them, you tell them, and they tell you, me, my first job, mistaki at 50K. Mtu akinioffer 50K, mistaki. But then I'm asking him, if I were to do an interview for you today, you are an economics and statistics student. Today, you are in 4th year. If I were to give you a time series analysis, you go to the junction, and then I want you to monitor just 3 customers who are coming into the junction, and I want you to monitor their behavior in terms of how they walk into shelves and pick their, because this is a behavioral economics thing, and they're supposed to, based on what they have learned over the last 4 years, they're supposed to be able to do a model and also predict who the next 3 other customers are going to behave like. And they're all of a sudden, they are suddenly very clueless. And I'm telling them, are you able to use Stata? Because Stata is an AI reinforced software for data analysis. You understand? So then again, they're also far removed. So then I'm telling them, what have you been doing the last 4 years? Have you been regurgitating? Because regurgitation is sort of like vomiting.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's like somebody fed you something that you do not like, and then you push it back. And I think that's the death we are talking about. The death that happened with our parents. That continuous and perpetual criticism that you need to be worthy only if you are able to earn something, that something has to have this grand capital meaning that you can derive and extract profit from. But what about love? What about the kind of relatability that this conversation is going to have out there? Remember, we're talking about AI, but people who are going to watch this episode are going to think, oh, how so connected are all these things that we were talking about tech, but then I've brought in my students, I brought in my nursery school years, you have brought in capitalism, you have brought in writing, you have brought in the ladies' current graduate school program. So this connects to the biggerness. You see, they're connected. And I feel like part of the reason, the laziness she talks about, is how people are far off removed from the courage to be into thought. You understand? You're not able to jump into it because for you to do something incredible, like you say, something exceptional, you have to really bear it out of your soul, out of your marrows. If you do not, it will be mediocre, for lack of a better word. So I think that if we are not brave enough to reach within ourselves and say, what part of my small little world can I give to this world? You understand? That is education.
Yeah.
Yes.
Can I jump in and share my thoughts as well, because I agree with a lot of what you're saying, and I think part of it is also a political thing where we said that the purpose of education is to give learners jobs, and so every time we are trying to revise the curriculum, every time we have an economic crash, we are not addressing the economy, we are trying to address education. So we change CBC all the time and saying, oh, this country, they really developed so fast because they were using this model of education. But the problem is not education. The problem is the economy is crashing. We are not nearly creating jobs at the rate that we are supposed to be creating. So we're trying to address this problem from a very, weird place. So then it forces education to become a machine that is producing people who will get even further into the machine when they get into jobs and keep that wheel and cog running. And I wish we were in a political dispensation where these people were interested in having critical conversations about how education and jobs are impacting us even in our mental health. Because you see students now, some students are committing suicide because they're just like me, I've failed. I am a failure. You failed. You're 18 years old. You have just done your high school education, and for some reason, something has convinced you that this is the end of life. What is that? That is a grave societal failure.
Right.
When children are killing themselves because apparently now there's no future for me, that is terrible, and we need to solve that. We need to make it so that education, and I like your articulation of it, like that education is supposed to help me find myself so that I find what my contributions can be in this shared life.
Yeah.
But we are making it so that, it's a pipeline to jobs, but you're not creating jobs. So then we have a depressed economy, and also we have a bulk of young people who do not have jobs. So now now in 2024 they're out in the streets because they have legitimate claims and complaints because there are no jobs, and you promised them. When they joined school in 2002, when education became free, all of them went to school. And the promise was that at the end of this, you're going to come out and get a job. So where's the job?
There is a conversation, Ochuka, that is currently going on, that when you wanted to take your child to school, you wanted to take that child to the best of the best, all right? School with good brains like yours and good materials and things like that. I am just wondering today with AI, well, some people are saying that AI sometimes reasons like the best of professors around. It can write better than a professor. It can do this better than this, and this better than this. So if you are a parent right now and you're saying, okay, I want my child to get the best education, what exactly is the best education? Is the best education ultimately the certificate and the name of the school on that certificate? Or the best education is actually how much Aggie's child is well equipped to face the outside world? So, for example, are you giving the best education because this education is coming from Riara, or you are giving the best education because the child knows a lot about what they were reading? And then the second question is now that. For example, do you really need this lady to go to Catholic University to do masters, or she only has to go there because ultimately that is the body that is going to give her the certificate?
Can I expand to that as you respond? Because I'm very interested in when education moved from a social enterprise. I think it was a social in the sense that you sent your child to school to go learn how to be with other people. Like, know that, like, if you push someone in the playground and they fall down and start crying, it's not okay. You're teaching them to be a well-adjusted individual. And I think that a lot of education all through should remain social, part of it. But when did it stop being that and become this individualistic, like, so I have to get my child to the best school, but also it's also who I could potentially meet at that school when I go to PTA, so that then I can make these relationships, so that then I can build my business. It's also that people make education, like, it's just been really, really corrupted in very many ways. So I'd like to hear your thoughts on that.
It's very interesting. It reminds me of about 1998 when cattle deeps were still common across the country. So cattle deeps are very, like, from a young child's mind or perspective, it was very frightening and terrifying. Seeing how, I don't know, but I think Jagero,
I saw them. I took several animals to the cattle deep.
So the way for people,
you should actually explain to them what exactly a cattle deep. Because a lot of them know.
Even I've seen them on videos, but I've not seen any in person.
A cattle deep is actually a place where you go and disinfect animals, so treat them because of bed bugs and all those things. So they sink something in the ground, and then they fill it with water, and then add the chemical or the pesticide or whatever it is. And then animals are put in a line and forced through that For it to come out the other side, it has to get into that water.
Okay.
So it goes boom, and there is a big
Splash.
Yeah.
And the water is here.
Yeah. And
Sometimes here.
Yeah, and then the animal has to swim across. And of course, when he's swimming across, he's swimming in that medicine or whatever it is. So when he's on the other side, then it will shake and then it is done. Yeah, I think they also even forced dogs into it, but dogs were very difficult to get into that stage.
Dogs would bite you. That's a very interesting. There's an article I wrote on Medium about the same. I was using the Cuttle philosophy.
Okay.
And because you asked what made us move from a social enterprise or a social good towards the allure of efficiency and productivity, because that is what education right now is. Where I think you were telling me about your nephew who thought, I don't want to go to college, I don't want to do this shit that you're telling me.
Yeah.
And I felt that was a big abuse to himself as well. Because you're tying yourself that if I do not go to a political block and mortar institution, that I am not educated well. And so the Cuttle philosophy is just like, we have identified ourselves as pests and unworthy beings. And this is why I don't like the religious, I'm unworthy of your grace. And I feel like all human beings have a certain worthiness inherent in them. Yeah. And if we educate ourselves better, then that worthiness can be able to thrive in any given environment, adjusted accordingly, of course. There will be some sort of shakeups in there, but I feel like that's part of life, really, chaos and all. So I feel that how we move from there is we identify that for every human being working in a mine somewhere, and this is very American, very capitalistic, because it came from the 1600s and 1700s pre-agrarian revolution, where we are realizing that we need more food to supply to the growing population. But at that time, there's measles, there's typhoid, and there's these novel diseases that are actually plaguing the whole population, and there's a lot of war. And the attachment of value beyond productivity, beyond use, beyond thought, is what led us to that. So you're looking at a student and you're wondering, if we, and this is like if they were modeling HELP fund from HELP, they were looking, if we educate this student with, let's say, about 240,000 for 4 years, by the time they get out, what amount of interest are they going to give us? When they start their job, will they be able to contribute to the GDP? So there's an optimization that is happening here that bypasses the human being in context. So I feel like education is supposed to contextualize a person so that you realize where is this person coming from. There's something called Fulbright. For a lot of professors in their 70s and 80s enjoyed Fulbright. A favorite of mine is called Professor Jagero. He teaches IR at UON. I like him because he's very proud about Fulbright. And he's also one of the most thorough professors I know. And he has indicated over and over how when they were applying for the scholarship, there was, I know we used to just talk about how I went to school with bare feet and I walked 18 kilometers. And for a long time, that was the allure that was needed. And like I was telling you, education is bypassing the humanity of the person. You understand? We are thinking that everybody in Africa went to school barefoot. Some actually had privilege and they never even thought that. But they're still capable of making a very good graduate student. They're still capable of representing the reality they grew up in Moja ama Woodley, where these realities of village poverty and social marginalization were not there. So I feel like the scholarly work of education is to, again, move the student far from the institution and near to the soul of that which they are passionate about. And this is why when you're saying, does she really need to go to Catholic to study literature? I feel like, yes, she does, because a school is a philosophy. A school is a thought in process. But then there is her looking back and realizing, where is my place and what am I going to write about? And this comes where I usually have a problem when people do their defense in theses.
And I think when I ask her about whether she needs to go to Catholic University, because...
Oh yeah, that's what he was talking about.
That's what I wanted to ask. there is her whose father is a professor and is rich enough to take her there so that she can get her master's. And then there's another person who cannot afford to go to Catholic University because they do not have school fees. So now the paradox, the question is, how do both of them attain their masters? And how are both of them told that here is a certificate, you've done your masters? And I want you to rope in AI into that. Is AI able to solve that question? I hope that you are enjoying that episode, people of the internet. You know, everybody says there is no job, and that is true. Also, that was me 10 years ago. The problem is that everybody is trying to get a job in their own town, in their own city, in their marketplace. They ask friends for jobs, mothers call uncles, uncles call fathers, but there are no jobs, right? Let me tell you what no one is telling you. Jobs migrated online. What I actually mean is there are many, many jobs around the world and there is no one to do them. I have worked for a long time online, I think more than 10 years. I work for Americans, I work for Europeans, I work for the Chinese, the Australian, Canadians, the Ugandans, name all of them. And last year, I had a eureka moment. I said to myself, you know what? I should compile what I have been doing for the last 15 years. So in 2024, I wrote a book called Gold Mine, 18 Side Hustles for Africans. And it sold a lot of copies. In fact, I was going for, sometimes I was receiving 500 orders in a day. In 2025, something happened. AI came. I think in 2025, AI came. AI came in 2024, but in 2025, it is here with us. And people say AI is taking away their jobs. And for me, I'll say false. There are actually AI jobs. Now, mimi ni nani? I created more jobs. We now have in my book 25 online and offline side hustles that you can do anywhere in the world, whether you are in the village, whether you are in your small town, whether you're in a marketplace, whether you are in your house, you can do them. In this powerful volume 2, I share 25 new actionable online hustles specifically researched and tailored for Africans. My new book provides clear step-by-step guidance, drawing from my extensive experience and research, including the mistakes I have made and lessons I have learned over 15 years in this online job market. You can become an executive assistant to busy folks in Europe, America, and Canada. You can also get paid for tasks like watching videos and taking online surveys. There are many of them and they're in my book. You can also build a business as a virtual assistant, start an e-commerce without a shilling. You can also become an affiliate marketer or an online English tutor. And you can also do tens of AI jobs, and they're all in these books. If you have a job, that is fine, but I know around you there are so many people that are always looking for jobs and at home watching Netflix. Buy this book for your brother, for your sister, for your mother, cousin, husband, who is back at home all day, all night watching Netflix. Okay? Buy it for your friend, that friend who is always asking you for cash, you can buy this book for them. All the information is in the description below. You can also inbox me, you can WhatsApp me, or you can go to my website, which is oduorjagero.co.ke. The book is only 1,000 Kenya shillings. Or if you're anywhere around the world, the book is $10. So thank you very much. Back to programming.
Well, it's capable of solving that problem, but I think what we are doing is we are running almost 3-4 steps ahead, because like I said, education is in itself, it's a thinking thing. You know, it's a philosophy, and there is how academia has been molded for almost 1,000 years or so. Yeah, so and this is why sometimes you see how people criticize education, like how to a university, because there's a model, there's a way they think.
Watu wa kizungu mingi, munaongea kizungu mingi sana.
Okay, kuja kwa office, you still have to retrain them so that they can actually deliver something that they went to school for 18 years. So I feel like, yes, it might solve it, but we also have to go back to what is our education, for example, as a country. And our education has a problem. Our education has that's why I was bringing the Cuttle deep. In fact, you see, right now, the reason why you have created, the reason why another child might not be able to offer, unlike her, and will not be able to enroll into a program unlike her, is because of costing. And costing is a capitalism thing. Capitalism is extractive. It takes and takes and takes and takes. Until a query is, a gaping wound is left there. So the gaping wound we are talking about is this child that cannot be able to enroll into university. How did that happen? Because a household is malnourished of that which is needed to pay, whether it is purely online classes or physical residential education. So I feel like, yes, it will solve it, but we need to go back to exactly what is the role of education. Does she need to go to Queer physically to do that?
Yeah.
I don't think she does, but we do not have the infrastructure and soul. Two things, infrastructure and soul.
Yeah.
Number one, I had a problem with a class of mine that had 230 students in a course. Now, on Google Classroom, the package they bought, you can only enroll about 200 people to do the exams. On a portal called Mitiani Portal, where they do the exams, you can do a number, but it keeps on crashing. Yes, these students were given telecom lines, and telecom has been under the line of fire for the last 3 or so years, dragging, because I don't think they are delivering on any of their promises or any of their services.
Yeah.
So imagine somebody has been told, you go back to Kisumu or to Turkana because right now our university is doing purely online classes, and you rely on telecom.
Yeah.
And the infrastructure that is available, the Mitiani portal or even the Google Classroom, ejects you every now and then. The lecturer freezes on the screen. Kumbe, this guy is presenting, and this guy is also not capacity built and trained. They can't even take a simple Zoom call. This is of picking my phone and calling Jagero, or a FaceTime. So you can imagine how difficult it would be, because with a Zoom call or with an online class, you need certain skill sets in terms of how do you manage presentations. And if you are doing something as technical as maths, you also have to know how do you annotate the figures. If you do not know that, then the students are going to be getting the raw deal in this place. So that's why we are saying that let us not rush that AI has come to save us. And this is the other thing. We do it even in politics, even in love and romance. We want to be saved so badly, and we want that work to not be our own.
Yes.
Yeah.
You understand?
Yeah.
We outsource it, we give it to another person because we imagine ourselves not doing the work. I feel like we need to do the work of thinking, how do we define our education? Because right now we don't have an education philosophy.
No.
We don't.
When you are you talking in are you saying, is that statement in Kenyan context or
In Kenyan
globally?
context.
Kenyan context.
What do you mean by that?
What I mean
Yeah.
by that is we have sort of done a patchwork. Yeah, we sat somewhere and a certain professor with a brown envelope under the table was told, this is what we want to be like Singapore. We want to be like America. And America, the one we want to be, the curriculum we want to be is in 60s or 70s. The setting is there. So in 60s and 70s, America had already made tremendous leaps that even if you were to compare it with the modern Kenya right now, we are at par. The disparity is gaping. So I feel like we took patchworks, and this is also the problem we have, that thinking our constitution is very good and progressive, and therefore it ought to have solved the issues, the political dilemmas that we are having, the social dilemmas that we are having. Yeah. And yet the work that is needed is the soul of the person.
Yeah. It's not the book.
It's not the book. It's not the book. Well, the soul of education is how you guys think about each other, how you treat each other. Kenyans, at some point, at this point in life, it's a very common theme that when you talk about people, I just want to get the bag. You talk about young people, they tell you, I want to get the bag. No, whatever that means, I just want to get the bag. So that means that you're putting yourself at a very precarious situation where anything goes. And where anything goes, you do not have a defined sense of self.
Yeah.
And therefore that is what education is supposed to put in you.
Yes.
Okay.
Or
help you set
allow
the
you
limit.
discover.
But then I think before I forget this question, I want to ask you this question. Probably Agi could also get in. What exactly is the university selling for for 700,000 per term. Because if you're selling a product, correct? I know that they have taken their time to use cabros to pave their pathways at the Catholic University. And they have got beautiful, nice red cushioned chairs at the Catholic University. And they have got nice, what are they called, the presentation screens. Very nice. Yeah. And I imagine that they have got professors or teachers that are probably from London School of Business or whatever they are coming from. And we have now realized that actually, if I take my Gemini app, okay, and start talking to the Gemini app about a particular problem in school, then I can actually just lie down and we will talk with this guy for 7 hours non-stop, And so then the issue and I know you are going to still bring the idea of the humanity into it because the chatbot now is not human and it is digitally made, okay? But we are just saying
this is a very actually different question, and I will give it a different approach.
Yeah. And so now Catholic University or whatever university or the one on Thika Road, I don't know, the American whatever. What is it called? USIU, okay? They have all those things, and they are claiming that they have got well-stocked libraries. Well-stocked libraries.
Well-stocked empty libraries.
Okay, let's assume they're stocked.
That's the description.
For the sake of the conversation, they're very stocked. So now, I go back to the question of what exactly is now the university selling for 700,000 per term? Because in 1990, they had the professor who had the knowledge.
Everything.
Yes.
Supposedly, yeah.
And
supposedly.
And the infrastructure of that school was well equipped to give you the master's degree that you need.
Right.
Okay? Now, with AI, I am thinking, do you think the school is looking at it and saying, something is here that is being sold for $20 a month and is sort of having our entire architecture, our entire library, everything that we have. Do you think that the university is saying that we have a proper competitor on the horizon, or that doesn't bother them?
Yes, I don't think, and this is a problem I've had with a few, many professor friends of mine, and I know that they're very dishonest about it.
Yeah.
And I told them that in one of our very heated arguments, I told them that this thing has already beaten you bluntly. You see, when you're beaten bluntly, you're not bleeding.
Yeah.
But you might be bleeding elsewhere.
Internal injuries.
There's a very crooked term in Lu. I don't know what it's called. It's called when you're beaten.
Obindi.
Yeah. It's you can even hear the word in itself.
Basically, you're not bleeding, but you're dying.
Yeah. Yeah, so there's a death that is happening, and that's what I was telling you about the 1,000 years of education, how academia has been fashioned, the cultures in it, the ethos, and that century or that millennia is dying, and they're not honest about it. They think you can still bully people, or you can still bully yourself around, because in 1980, a professor had almost exclusive knowledge resource. In fact, even their level of training was like, I am the judge here, you're the student there. But AI is coming to balance this thing and saying, and this is why prompting comes very often when people talk about you need to learn how to prompt the AI to give you the quality of thought that you require. So that actually also tells you of the model of a good education. According to me, Ochuka, the way a good education ought to be is that it is a learning process where it's more sort of like a circle, and it's not vertical or horizontal. It's a circle. Remember how we used to gather around? I was fortunate enough to have to see my great grandmother. So we used to gather around in circle. We were very dusty, and it was very enjoyable. And I think that goes back to Africanism in terms of how we taught, how we passed around knowledge, whether we were working or harvesting. And I feel like, yes, that is what came up post-1995, because at that point, education had already changed. Computers were in the game now. And by the time we were hitting 2005 and late 2010s, now AI has sort of like sort of reared its edge. It's now a possible reality, and we cannot run away from it. So the pricing model where you say, and it's very unfair, by the way, how it came about is, remember when you were starting, when I was telling you that a better part of the disservice capitalism is doing to every human being is bypassing their humanity. I have to rope back their humanity because it's very important. It's thinking that you're just a product that you can actually variable around, play around with because you want to optimize a certain outcome. So SSP programs come in.
What does SSP
SSP is self-sponsored programs, otherwise also called parallel programs.
Not JAB.
Yeah, not JAB. So
What is JAB?
Kitambo, there used to be something called a joint admissions board.
Oh, okay.
It is what is now called COOPS today.
Okay.
So COOPS, yeah. So Kitambo, JAB used to be when, I think in the third term of your secondary school, you used to apply for colleges that you want to go and the courses you want to do. And then JAB would consider whether you have met the criteria or the cluster points. And then they would admit you to a certain university to do a certain course. And then during that time, in early 1990s, that is also the time when SAP programs were also dwindling. SAP programs are loans that were given mostly by the World Bank or IMF to sort of jumpstart. They were thinking that they could uniformly jumpstart Latin America's and African countries into modernity. In other words, to modernize and civilize them. You understand? And this is also the thing I was telling you. Humanity is very important because they looked at us and saw that this model of living and communal living is not modern enough. It needs to be civilized. And so the African man and woman, young at birth, growing through a process, is needed to be civilized or sutured, like tailored in a certain way so that you can meet the demands of a market. And this is why I'm roping in the SSP program, the parallel programs. That's when we started having very bogus courses, some of which are supposed to be a unit or a course in a postgraduate program. They made it a full-length undergraduate program. Like, for example, and this used to come as a result of marketability. It's something, I think we still do it today, but it was very common, I think, when I was going to college around 2010s.
Even parents asking around and asking people, what is the market?
Market. Yes, today, doctors who are so marketable. Doctors are tarmacking. Can you imagine that?
Yeah.
How does a doctor tarmac anyway?
Exactly. You can see the shock you have in your face.
Hana, Hajui.
Yeah, you don't, because Kitambo, it used to be so possible, because my uncle went to university in the 70s. By the time they were in third year, you were probably posted at a bank somewhere. And that would be the rest of your life. Today, a doctor who has spent 8 or so years, and given that there's usually lecture strike and extensions, it's probably 10 years. You understand? And the 700,000 you were talking about has blown up to almost 4 million or 6 million. So the pricing model is very unfair, and it's also anti-thinking in terms of the honesty required to look at, yes, there is this tech that is coming up. How can we be a part of it without losing the soul of that which we are, or we stand for example, as Harvard University, as the UN, as London School of Economics. So Harvard has been doing a series of certificates for a long time, as far as I can imagine. I think in 1999 they used to do these courses, and used to be models. So these models can run for 3 months, and then over time you get your certificate. And this is something that is not new, because my grandfather did part of his courses in 1960s and 70s using correspondence. They used to go to Kisumu to get papers, and then they would do them. Long form essays and researches, and then they would type them, then they would send them back to London. That's how a lot of people also did. People who could not manage to go for Mboya airlifting programs. Just like you were saying, there's another student or a child that cannot be able to afford the 700,000 that is slapped on the face of every child that wants to walk into the UN or Catholic or KU. So yes, that's the same thing. You realize that there's an intelligence somewhere. If you remove the artificial sense of it, back then, when people used to learn by correspondence, there was an intelligence somewhere there. There was a design in terms of how things are supposed to be done. And that is what the professors are not honest about, because they're not thinking. And yet there's the same people who claim so much to be guardians of thinking. If you're a thinking person, then you're able to see that everything, including your very yellow notes and year-stained lecture slides, also have a disadvantage based on the times that we are living in. So if you're not able to take advantage of a tech, saying that blanketedly, this is something that ought not to even have been alive. And yet it is here, it's existing. Today, if you look at ChatGPT or Claude, 6 years behind, six months behind, a lot has changed. A lot has changed. And the more things are changing, the more we rely on our paranoia and not facts, not things we can actually do to accommodate tech in our lives, so that we don't run with the paranoia that this thing is going to replace us human beings, is going to make us lazy. We are already lazy. We are already extractive. We are already conniving people. We are already people who think, I can just walk over you. If I see this mic here and I see Jagero is not around me, I just sneak around with it. Understand? So AI is not going to solve that. It's only going to, if anything, is going to just make it worse or aggravate it. Yes.
But then Andy, you have something to say before I ask another question?
Ask the question.
Let me ask the question. What is the middle ground for professors, for people who are teaching at the tertiary level? Or let's just put them together and bundle them together as teachers. And the university. If you are the vice chairman of Nairobi University, how do you start saying, okay, I've got a competitor here that is costing $20 a month? How do I now cost? Because I also think that it is also fair that there are bills that they are running.
And that is also what balloons the 700K you were talking
to
about.
700. Can I also add that I feel like there's teaching as a profession is very crucial. It's a very crucial part of the education ecosystem.
Right.
And right now, teaching is in jeopardy. I don't know what's happening in the universities, but like Ukuchini, nobody wants to be a teacher. Nobody wants to be a teacher.
It's a last resort.
It's the last resort. But say tumefunga education campus ya
even
IKU.
myself, I ran away from the village because they wanted me to be a teacher.
You're like,
Took
no.
off.
But you're still teaching anyway.
The city of glasses. Yeah. Not that kind of teaching, bro.
Yes, exactly. That's the point she's making.
That's the point I'm making. Yeah,
exactly.
I'm trying to say that this passing down of knowledge is still a very crucial part of how any society continues and propagates itself. Because the importance of having like your great-grandmother, and also my grandmother used to sit us down after we pray and tell us stories and sing, and we would sing those songs together. The importance of that is not just that I am going to know the story, it's also that I'm going to learn how to relate with you as someone who is not of my generation, because I can see the context in which you grew up, right? And without that, where is the continuity? So we are cutting history out of the classroom. When nobody wants to teach at all.
And also because nobody wants to learn.
And nobody wants to learn because teachers now are being told, one of the fears with AI is that AI is going to replace teachers. And they're being told AI and technology is going to replace you. So, job yako sio marketable anymore. It's just a matter of time anyway. It's just a matter of time. You will not have a job. You're going to be jobless. And now we are calling teachers facilitators of learning. We are calling we are calling them all manner of things.
Who is calling them facilitators of learning? CBC.
Watu. And now the very important art of teaching is also being lost, because it's very, very important for some, not because you're like the most knowledgeable in the room, but because you're able to provide further context to the knowledge that is being acquired. That is the importance of teaching. It's like, Sawa, you remember, like, I don't know if you guys experienced this, but like this teacher teaches, and then when you see like the kind of questions, you're just like, what this feels like it's not what I learned. Why is it so different? Which I could, if I was learning via AI and AI just taught me and said, okay, sin X, sin Y, whatever, then now I have the question and I'm like, I'm not understanding, because now the question is not just the calculation. It has put this calculation in a real life, in a real world situation. I need someone to help me process that. It's like, oh yeah, where you're going to apply this is here. This is how you can use this knowledge. And sometimes there can be so much creativity where you didn't even anticipate that you would use this knowledge there. Now people are asking, iyo kitu ulisoma Class 8.
What are you using
What
it for?
are you using it for?
Especially the way they beat me in high school for nautical miles.
Now you're not using it for anything because we think that the only importance of
I
education
didn't even understand it at the time.
is the utility that you're going to get from it when you're an adult in the name of a job. While we know a lot of our jobs are not necessarily productive in terms of how you're supposed to put your thought into it and produce, our jobs are still a factory where you go and manufacture. You input, you tour. You input, you tour. Even
At a way where you're just input.
you're just
It's
you
just an
even you
input.
are just a factor of production. You're input in there, you come out on the other side. So the problem is big. It's not a small problem. And the society is going to disintegrate if we are not serious about resolving this education issue. Right? Yeah.
Yeah, I asked you a question, right?
What did you ask?
I asked about what is the middle ground for
teaching.
For teaching.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I
because
think-
we want to go to the marketplace and talk about AI in the marketplace.
I think the middle ground comes with a first very introspective nature of looking at things. I like introspection because then again, it allows you to confront yourself and the society at large by which you live or in which you live. So I think that if for example, a VC at a university somewhere, I'd not dismiss AI, or not so completely. I think that even in terms of research production, it's very lacking, and even the AI that the students are using, the model, even the training in itself of this AI, it's only now that it is still learning to pick up the crumbs of the African reality. And you said something very good in terms of education is about contextualizing a person in the larger nest that we were talking about when we were starting this conversation. So I think that if we are able to contextualize ourselves, we also have to have a folder. A folder is sort of like a lush green thing that you can go back to. Sort of like that food that hangs in whatever that thing is called. Luyas and Luas will know it. You know, that green pasture that you have partitioned and rotated your cattle for. That learning that, yes, a cattle dip is supposed to cure the animal or the pet, but this pet or this animal or this cattle is still in itself an entity for you. Remember, we are not supposed to be treated as utilitarian things, like things that only are useful to the extent that they can be able to give us or we can derive something of them. We first have to understand that a person exists, and because in themselves there's an inherent value to them. So how do we capture that value and not get redundant of get rid of them so violently by seeing them as units of production? So we ought to have a way of first capturing African reality or Kenyan reality. Like I was reading the AI policy document for Kenya, and it was heavily plagiarized from the Singapore one. It has no reality. It's very academic in what I might say.
Where do you get that one?
Is
Where
the-
do you get it if you want to read it?
I think it's the government portal.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Oh, is that so?
yeah,
They
yeah.
have
So
a new AI policy.
yeah, so
A
that
new AI policy?
yes, and you see, this is also the number two part. We ought not to be very reactionary. Most of our lives, even in terms of even at personal levels, when we are too reactionary, often we either make mistakes, we do very erratic choices, or we worsen the situation that already exists.
Yeah.
So we don't solve anything. And I feel like we need to really sit still and honest about the problem we are facing and the sort of solutions we are imagining. Education is about reimagining yourself over and over until the day you die. Because the moment you stop imagining yourself and the society at large, you die. So I feel like we need to reimagine our realities and then take advantage of how can we customize that with AI and not get rid of it. Because this thing it's life itself right now.
It's not going anywhere. Yeah.
I was talking to Agi early in the morning, and she was very agitated about that question that I was asking her. I asked her, "What makes you think that I cannot do your job now, even though I'm not educated?" And she talked about the things that she was doing, and in my head I'm thinking, I can do this job 110% using AI. And she was I don't know whether she was agreeable, but she was like, I don't know. And She was basically thinking about the worst for herself.
It's like, now I am a jobless youth. I'm a jobless youth.
I see where it's coming from.
Marketplace.
What do you think, honestly thinking about the job that you do and your colleagues do in the office?
Yeah.
All right. If you have somebody that is very good at thinking and very good at processing information, even though they might not have specific expertise in that field, have you ever thought about your work and AI and how your employer at some point might just realize that we are paying Maggie for nothing, really?
Yeah.
Have you thought about it?
That's the reality we have to contend with. Like some of the jobs, like the reality is that some of these jobs and the work that we are doing can be replaced by AI. A lot of the things that are redundant, administrative tasks, all of that. But the World Economic Forum, released something about the future of jobs the other day, and they said like they were trying to kind of help us put that in context.
Okay.
We're like, okay, fine, some jobs are going to go, but there's a lot more opportunity to create even more jobs along. So it's like I can be terrified today about like, oh my God, now Jagero is going to come and take my job. Or if you create an AI and call it Jagero, it's going to come and take my job. But again, as we are saying, the idea behind me being educated is how can I innovate and reinvent myself so that I am able to still be a contributing member of society, for lack of a better word, in that sense. So the fear is there. And it is real. And not just for jobs like ours in the corporate, like as I've said, even teachers now are just like, Sibasi AI, fundishe watoto, then as we close these schools, everybody stays at home. We go and do other things. And funnily enough, every time this conversation comes up, it's like, ama tuende tulime, everybody now starts to think of
that is the question. That is the
what
question I'm asking,
what can you do with your hands?
As somebody, I don't know. As a jobless person, I don't know what people with jobs and
Jagero is always saying he's jobless.
But I think that's also the thing about.
Let me ask you this question.
Jobless man, this one.
Jobless God.
Sahi ako bez. Anapiga story na my youth.
Oni jaba kwa sura yake.
So, you are somebody in the work environment and the people that you are meeting. How frightened really are people about AI? How frightened are people? Like, do people really have real fear?
I think so. I think there's a real fear about AI, because also if you open your Nini and if you that algorithm we were talking about, if you watch one AI doom video, now there's 10 AI doom video for like you're going to be spat out of your work. Like it's real, right? Or maybe it's imagined. I don't know, but like the fear itself is real. People are going through real problems. So me and a friend of mine were having a discussion the other day about how we can I think the conversation started from how do we solve the problem for Africa, which we were naming as a problem of no production. Like we are not producing. Like our jobs... it's like, okay, every 2 weeks you have to give yourself a pep talk. Because you are questioning what is the value of what I am doing. What am I doing? It's a persistent question in the corporate space. Because you find yourself like just running around making money for some people. And you don't feel like you're actually contributing. And that's like a real, as we're talking about humanity, it's a real crisis internally, because you're like, I don't know if this is what I was like supposed to be doing with my life, like feeling like I'm just feeding in and feeding out. And so we have this discussion and we come to a simple thing where we're like, what happened to artisanship? Like what happened to like artisanship, which is something that I feel like we can have all our qualms about China as we want, but like artisanship or what is the word? Is it artisanship? Whatever, artistry, whatever, this thing that you can fashion things with your hands.
Think about it as us podcasters who are really in production.
Yes. We have an intangible good, but but China has really leveraged that. Like, let's train people how to make good quality products that can be sold in the world markets, right?
Okay.
And then now there's all these jokes about like your Givenchy bag or whatever is $2.
I really think they're lying. I think the Chinese are lying to us. And
I don't think they are lying.
I think
These people have invested heavily in their craftsmanship. And you know, part of that, that is about because there's been people who have been teaching other people how to be craftsmen.
Yeah.
So they're like, sawa, kama wewe ni mkulima, funza mtoto wako kuwa mkulima, funza your grandchildren. So you have a whole line of farmers or a whole line of artisans of this kind or a whole line of this. But we don't have that. We don't have that. What can we say that our parents have taught us to do? Apprenticeship. We don't have that either. And I think that's also important to say.
And this is Ochuka, before you jump in, this is the biggest frustration that I'm having with my village right now. Because people are basically just stuck because there is nothing they can do other than having gone to Nyalunya Primary School and then proceeded to Nyabondo Boys High School and then went and did agriculture at Maseno. And then they realize that is the end of it. I'm actually going back home to my village. And then when we reach there, they are caught up, they are mingling with people that did not go to school. And they are wondering what a failure I am that I have gone to Nyalunya Primary School, went to Nyabondo Boys High School, went to Maseno of all the universities, top university in Kenya. And then after 4 years, I'm literally going back to the village to sit there in my grass-thatched house, and I have nothing else to do. And hoping that Jagero, who is in Nairobi, is one day going to hear somebody who has a job. But they don't farm in Nairobi.
Yeah.
So even it is so interesting when you're talking about artisanship. I don't know whether that is an English word.
It is.
Yeah.
It is, yeah.
Okay. Thank you. We were really struggling.
The professor said it is.
Yeah, Professor Mesema. Did you want to
maybe we should
internet?
have asked the lady from the University of Catholic. You should have gone to Gemini to find out. So, you find people who have gone and did agriculture for 6 or 4 years, not able to farm. Like, they still think that farming is for villagers who didn't go to school. But they went to the university and studied farming.
What were they learning?
What were they learning?
What were they being taught?
I think there is this idea that if I go and do agriculture, I am going to work with the agricultural forestry, whatever.
Be a CEO somewhere swinging.
Yeah, I'm going to work with an organization that is planting trees. We are going to gallivant villages with these heavy pickups and telling people how to plant trees. That's the idea.
Yeah.
They actually, when they're at the university, they're not thinking about getting education in agriculture to come and farm on a 2-acre land. That's not what is going on. And I think that's what you're saying.
Yeah.
When you talk about people have literally been taught to make things. We have been taught how to do.
Work now is, do you have a laptop and an office? Now that is what we call work. And actually, maybe you should talk about this, the erosion of the value of doing honest work, because I feel like we're in a crisis.
We are.
That's the crisis. It's like when you think that the only thing that will make me productive is if I have an office to go to and sit in front of a laptop and put in some numbers and then I'll be paid at the end of the month. While in reality, the thing that will make the society keep going is when enough of us are in production. Like even before this, what were you calling it? What did they want to do to us? They wanted to make us more modern, like before
Civilize
us. Before the civilization of us, we were still productive and our societies were functional. It's not like we were in the bundus trying to and not surviving.
And even there, we were actually doing quite well.
We were doing quite okay because there was value in doing honest work, and you could see that if I don't lima right now, then next week there will be no food, not just for my family, but because I need to farm my maize. We'll go to the market and exchange it for something else because someone else has been farming beans, someone else has been doing XYZ. someone else has been keeping cattle, someone else has been like, there was value, like you could see that your work actually meant something.
Yeah.
And I think we have lost that. Like a lot of us are in like some sense of disillusionment about like, what am I doing?
Delulu thing.
And what I can only imagine, but what do you think that the employers are doing to embrace or to strike that balance between having an employee and still, making use of AI? I was talking to my wife the other day, who is working for an organization, and she was telling me that the organization is very anti-AI.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and I'm like, but why are you anti-AI? Because
Me, I know why.
Why
At least I have a theory, and I'm going to ask
Okay.
Professor to
Tell us
interrogate my theory. I think even though we believe so much about AI and its capacity to change the workplace and all of that, I do not think it's going to cut down on jobs as much as we say it's going to. And I think it's and not in a nice way, I think it's a concerted effort to keep us in jobs because AI does not pay tax.
AI does not pay tax? That is a very interesting question. Why should we pay tax anyway?
Exactly.
So that's my theory. My theory is we have to, because bodies in the office means income for governments, not just our government. We have to keep people there so that they earn money and pay.
Because then you have to pay. You should pay 30 employees.
Yeah, not 5. Because if you pay 5 only, how much are you then giving to the government?
But the organization is also paying tax apart from the tax that is paid by the...
But the more people they have and the size, also they prorate by size of organization as well, and also your income, and also your... so tukiongelea pay...
What is prorating?
They
adjusting.
They adjust depending
on your income,
on your income, the size of the organization, all of that. So if you have 500 people, like we are obviously not expecting you to pay the same as the person who has 10.
Okay, I see.
10 people, that kind of thing.
Oh, I see. So if you have 5 people, but it depends on how much you're making though. Yeah,
but still, it's like all these 5 people are pay as you earn or whatever taxes that they are paying. I think it's my conspiracy theory. They just want to keep us there so that we can keep paying taxes. So that
but that's the government. As a company, I'm not interested in doing that.
But politics is all of us.
You're a government.
Politics is everywhere, and it's everything. Our lives are currently run by politics. And then and if we keep hiding our heads in the sand and acting like apana mimi nitalipa tu your 5% or 35% and go on with my life. You can't escape it.
We can wrap up the conversation by talking about...
Wait, no, he hasn't responded to my theory.
He has not responded to your theory. Yeah, he's going to respond to your theory now.
Yeah.
I had about 3 things. Number 1, I think there is a genuine dread in terms of where do we go from here, which I think will wrap up the conversation. And that dread is not in isolation, because jobs have been changing. Remember, there was a time used to be somebody called a mailman.
A mailman?
Yes, a mailman.
Very important.
A mailman?
Yes.
Very important, for example, in the Americanization of the world.
Yeah.
How information was sent from one place to another and ensuring that it actually reached. And this is what actually built the postal industry. And this is also what built even the publishing industry. But that changed. That changed. There was a time, I think, in France where there used to be somebody who used to wake people up in the morning. Yeah, in the morning. Can you imagine that, the absurdity of it?
So how?
You wake up in the morning, ring a bell, it's a good morning, and you give a good gesture, people laugh, and yeah.
Nice.
So jobs have been changing, and there's always atrophy of jobs every now and then. But there's also, as society adapts and adjusts to itself, more are also created. So I feel like, yes, the dread is very real, and it's coming from a place where already we are feeling cramped up. We are feeling like there's no job anyway. And where that comes from is the fatal wounding that the education system gives every child. The moment you go in, and by the time you come out, you are not yourself.
Yeah.
You are a product. You are somebody with a barcode.
You're an output.
Yeah, you're an output. And then you look around and you're wondering, where do I get the output? And based on the training and the regurgitation that you got through your education system, you are the one person who went to Egerton. And Egerton used to be a very good agricultural college. But you cannot be able to link that even, like, for example, you come from Mahero. How can you solve low productivity of rice? And rice has been, you went to school courtesy of rice. Your mother took 2 bags of rice, begging the school principal, just please take this mine, I will bring the other next. You understand? It means education removed you far from the reality of your life where that education ought to have happened.
Yeah.
Because you are supposed to, like we said, you're supposed to exist in this ecosystem. So that dread comes not because of AI. It comes from a dread we already have inside us, that we are worthless. We don't have value to put into the world. So even when even if I went to school, and even you look around, and sometimes before, when your friends have already gotten their corporate jobs, you usually feel like you are alone. Yes. But the moment you start talking to them, you realize this guy lives in West T. Yeah? They live in a 200,000 Kenyan shilling apartment. But when you're talking, and it gets to a point where you guys are not different people, they are so bored because there is no value, there's no sense of self they're putting into the work. They've been corporatized, like something has been taken from them, and they're just there slaving, like it's just going to the cattle dip every now and then. It's terrifying. And so that even dips in productivity. You have employees who they come to the office, and by the time anyone goes to 5, like it's like a robot. It's like a robot.
It's like your life starts at 5.
Yes.
And then on Friday evening,
yes.
Then now you go have your life for the weekend. Then during the week,
sort of soothe your wounds and go back to the to the program.
Yeah.
So then again, when you have robotized yourself, and then here is tech AI coming in, you guys are not the same. You guys are almost the same people now.
Yeah, you and the AI.
You
and cloud.
And that's why people are thinking, oh, my job is gonna go. You're not thinking that AI is going to complement my life. And yes, it might take some few things, but people are so adaptable. Jobs will go, yeah. How many times have you lost a job? How many times have you gone a month or 2 months without a job or an earning, but yet you pulled that back? You didn't do that because of a tech. You did that because you're capable
resilient.
Of reimagining yourself. And this is what you are saying.
I wonder how you reimagine yourself within the same role.
That is the thing. So that is the dread. Already you've been made to feel like the only thing you can do is productivity. That you're just supposed to input something without yourself also going into the productive line. So if you far remove yourself from it, then it means that when AI comes in, you are not capable of imagining yourself as separate from it. You are it.
You're it.
So you are exiled. You're actually exiled from the hands-on thing. You see, I remember, and this is something I need to, maybe I don't know how people are going to think about it, but my grandfather and the people around their age, when I used to observe them, this guy could do woodwork. This guy could do gardening.
Yes.
This guy washed me. This guy was an educator. This guy sang in the church and played guitar.
Yeah.
I feel like the crisis we are having is that deep down we all have artistry, and we are the life, like this thing we call life, is about how do you dispense that artistry. So most of us are soulless, that we move on and on in the cogwheel, not knowing how do I put my artistry. You think that getting a corporate job earning 600,000 or 1 million is going to give you the artistry. Yes, to a certain point. You build your mother a bungalow, you take your kids to good schools that you are saying, and then you realize, oh, I'm so fucking empty. Sorry for cussing. But that is where you get exiled.
Sorry. It's already out there. It's too late.
Dialogue with Jagero is a cussing podcast.
It's fine. Yes. Yeah. The audience is...
So that exile is the dread you are talking about.
Yeah.
And I feel like if we were to reimagine ourselves, we have to go back to being hands-on, because I feel like the joys we derive, and even this, you know, sometimes somebody can say intangible services like podcasting does not have hands-on. How many hands have we touched around here?
Yeah, so many.
Yeah?
So many.
How many people are around this podcast? Some of which our viewers will not see.
Yeah.
But there's a community here.
Yeah.
And every one of them has contributed in hand and soul and heart. And it comes from a place, from how they were educated, from how they were raised, from how they think about the world.
Yeah.
They come to Jagero, and I want to believe that all of us have sort of this vision that we share, that we want to steer this conversation, we want to steer this community of DWJ into a certain vision that will not only end into this room, it will pick up into the community. It will just contribute. Like I remember one very important thing before I go. There used to be a women's guild by my grandmother. They used to do othith. Othith is when you do, how do you call it? You knit baskets.
Yeah.
So they used to do it on Sundays. And it used to be so interesting that at some point, you used to pass one basket to the other. And I also remember that they used to rear silkworm for silk and threading. And that, when I tie it back, because that is the soul of education, you are learning from each other. These were widows. And this is what we are saying. It's not like there is no exile in the world, that there is no tragedy, that there is no difficulty that we need to solve. There is already. But it's how we do it, and it's hands-on. And when it is hands-on, we do not mean these hands alone. We also mean the thinking in it. You know, we also mean the sharing of conversation. What do you think about this? We also mean how do we nest ourselves back to where we come from and where we imagine ourselves to go for. Yeah.
Okay. I wanted to ask as we finish, which AI are you using? Let's start with you, Agi. Or should I start?
Yeah, you use a lot of AI. I don't use nearly as much AI as you do.
What do you use?
You've already said you use like 4 or 5 of them.
I use minimal.
I use it's called deep something.
DeepSeek.
DeepSeek.
R1 or R2?
R1.
R1.
And ChatGPT.
And ChatGPT. For doing what?
Random things, like what I was trying to do this morning. I was trying to adjust a timeline for something, and it was just too much for me to do it myself. So I asked ChatGPT to do it.
But that's part of your job description. Why is it too much?
Because it is a mundane, repetitive task.
Okay.
And I don't have to do it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Ochuka, what do you do?
I use
What do you use?
I use DeepSeek, but I especially loved it when it was helping me with MATLAB. MATLAB is one of the hardest courses when it comes to data. And it's very time consuming. Sometimes you can spend 10 hours behind a computer and you have an Excel sheet of data that runs almost 2,000 columns, you know, and you're wondering, how do I do this? If I were to do that, I would probably take a month. But right now, I'm also competing against other needs. Sometimes my health is at stake. So I'm cutting down on that. And then also, I use Claude. Claude seems to be a bit human. I like that. It also, and I think most AIs are now very, very more conversational as opposed to when they were starting. So you can be able to steer it towards a goal that you want. I also use it for learning how to prompt myself, how to like brainstorm, like think. It's kind of like just going to a library and picking a set of books and this is what I want to do. So I use it a lot for brainstorming in terms of the far reach of efficiency and the speed that I cannot be able to achieve within a very short time frame. And then I also use it in terms of looking for a repository of how like people think, models in different parts of the world that might not be very accessible to me, as opposed to like if I were to maybe check in a library somewhere or call a certain expert that might also need me to pay some little money for their skill set and time. So it's I feel like I am learning about it. I wouldn't say that I'm very good at it yet. It's a learning process. And I'm interested in to find out how things are going to turn out.
All right, thank you very much.
That's it.
Yeah.
Okay.
It is 1 hour and 40 minutes, Ochuka.
That's good. That's good.
Yeah, 1 hour 40 minutes. So we have done a lot, uncovered a lot, and everything that was in my head, we have talked
covered.
about it. Probably what we will talk about is, I think a lot of people are wondering what to use which AI for, and I think that is important because, for example, myself, when I'm doing research, a lot of people are talking about Perplexity to do research. You've heard of people talking about Perplexity to do research, and I think like if you compare Google deep research and Perplexity. Perplexity is just like, it's like child play. You know, even Claude, I can't use Claude to do research or ChatGPT to do research because
I prefer Gemini for research.
yeah, it is so good at research. Like you'll get a lot of things for research. I like Claude for writing short stuff because it's very good at writing, and the sentences are not as long as the ChatGPT sentences. Very, very succinct. Very, very, very much to the point. It's more. It articulates more than. And I also like it for crunching data. Between Claude released Claude 4 yesterday.
For coding and all that, yeah. Oh yeah.
Yeah,
2.7.
it was 3.7 Sonnet, and now they have got the Sonnet 4. I use Claude to code. My primary. So I also use Google Gemini to plan the code, to plan the entire thing. And then now use Claude to code because I think it is very good at coding. And then I think I don't know what ChatGPT is good for anyway these days.
It seems to be
It
in
seems
a
to-
limbo.
Yeah.
You know, when you're talking about students
Yeah.
who went to Maseno and they come back, I think that's where chat. One day, I'm back in the village with the Gemini.
What am I gonna do
What
with
am I gonna
myself?
do with myself?
I think it has really retrogressed, and I think
Sana,
capitalism has hijacked it completely.
Yes. Yeah.
To the point of where now they are looking for building, I don't know what in Dubai, buying. They just bought a product that is not in the market. Like nobody knows what that product is. They bought it for $6.7 million.
Yeah.
Billion dollars.
Billion dollars.
Yesterday, Johnny Ivy, I don't know if you guys know Johnny Ivy, that used to talk about iPhones when they
The
come
iPhones,
out.
yeah.
Yeah, people make me use to make fun of him.
Yeah.
About glorifying something that Android did like 10 years ago.
Yeah.
Yeah, so thank you very much. People of the internet, that was Omondi Ochuka, and this is Agi Ulo, and my name is Omondi Jagero. Until another episode, bye for now. We are going towards 100,000 that we are celebrating in August. If you're enjoying our content, please consider subscribing, hit on that notification bell. Let's get that silver, what is it called? Silver what?
The plaque.
It's a
The silver plaque. Yes.
Plaque.
Yeah. Yes.
Thank you very much. Until another episode, bye for now.